Oh, they don't like that. Oh,
Would be about the same size.
Because I remember the phrase.
She is Scotty. And she talks like she speaks so well. It's crazy.
She got a phone.
It's okay. It's okay.
Hey, do you have a phone? Email it to me.
I will. Thank you.
Email it earlier this evening.
Never assume.
Sorry, I'm finished.
Yeah, we're going
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call everyone to your attention for tonight's meeting for the Columbia City Council meeting. You are here at the right place, but before we begin our actual formal council meeting, we do have a few matters for public hearing, which we'll go through first and then transition into the council meeting. First, public hearing number 1. Public hearing on resolution number 2221 relates to item 11.1 on the agenda, a resolution to annex and approve a plan of services for tax map 74, parcel 37, located at 626 Baker Road into the city of Columbia, Tennessee. This is Ward 5. Anyone in the audience this evening wish to be heard at the public hearing section for public hearing number 1? Seeing none, anyone on council wish to be heard on public hearing number 1? Hearing none, entertain a motion to close public hearing number 1. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman? Aye. Mr. Green? Ms. Hardison?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall? Aye. Mr. Wiles? Vice Mayor Martin?
Aye.
Mayor Mulder?
Aye. Public hearing number 1 is now closed. Next, item 2. Public hearing on ordinance number 4398 relates to item 10.1 on the agenda. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 3638, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Columbia, Tennessee, to zone property being annexed by resolution number 2221, located at 626 Baker Road, being tax map 74, parcel 37, to RS 10, single family, low density residential, Ward 5. Anyone in the audience wish to be heard at the public hearing section on this matter? Seeing none, anyone on council wish to be heard on public hearing number 2? Hearing none, entertain a motion to close public hearing number 2. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman? Aye. Mr. Green? Aye. Ms. Hardison? Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Mr. Wiles.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye. Public hearing number 2 is now closed. Next, final public hearing number 3. Public hearing on ordinance number 4399 relates to item 10.2 on the agenda. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 3638, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Columbia, Tennessee, by rezoning tax map 99J, Group C, Parcel 2, located at 913 Riverside Drive, from low-density residential to single-family medium high-density, Ward 5. Anyone in the audience this evening wish to be heard on public hearing number 3? Seeing none, anyone on council wish to be heard on this matter? Public hearing number 3? Hearing none, entertain a motion to close public hearing number 3. It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilmember Kenny Marshall. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Mr. Green. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Mr. Wiles. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye. Public hearing number 3 is now closed. Now, I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order and issue a welcome to all of you who are here this evening in person and all of you who may be tuning into our YouTube live stream of this meeting. We welcome you. We're glad that you're here, and we hope that you'll learn a little bit about your community while you're here and also walk away optimistic about your community, as we all will from this council. I'd ask Mr. Jablonski to please first call the roll.
Mr. Coleman. Here. Mr. Green. Here. Ms. Hardison.
Here.
Mr. Marshall.
Here.
Mr. Wiles.
Here.
Vice Mayor Martin.
Here.
Mayor Mulder.
Here, let the record reflect, all members are present of this council. Moving on now to section 2, the invocation by Eric Nichols of Connection Church. I see Eric. Eric's a familiar face and a friend. I'm glad that he's here. I would ask everyone to please stand for the invocation. And I also ask you to please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, which this evening we will have our colors presented by the Columbia Police Department Honor Guard. And in keeping with the solemnness nature of the Honor Guard that we have this evening, we'd ask everyone to please remain standing. We'll be out of order a little bit on the agenda because we're going to go straight to presentation 5.1, presentation of a proclamation for Police Week. So please stand for the invocation and remain standing until asked to do otherwise. Eric?
Mayor, can I first commend you on the fastest public hearing that I've seen in my entire life?
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. Before I did this invocation, I had to do what everyone does, and I had to look up the word on Google to see what that meant because I wanted to know if I had some preaching time. Turns out I don't. So the definition is this, and this is the reason I want to read it to you, is because it has to do with the prayer. The definition is the act or process of petitioning for help or support. I thought that was pretty powerful, and it goes on to say it's a prayer of entreaty. So we're going to petition to the God of the universe, the maker of heaven and earth, to give our leadership tonight help and support. This is a prayer of entreaty, so let us pray. Heavenly Father, let me start by saying that you're worthy of worship and praise. We thank you for this beautiful day and for this opportunity to meet as representatives of this amazing people, the people of Columbia, Tennessee. Please guide our mayor, Chaz Mulder, our vice mayor, Dr. Krista Martin, Councilwoman Hardison, Councilman Wiles, Councilman Green, Councilman Marshall, and Councilman Coleman as they meet this evening to represent each ward from Columbia. We ask that you give them wisdom beyond their years and experience. Lord, we petition you for your help and your support. Even more than that, we plead for the empowerment necessary to make even the most difficult of decisions regarding every topic and item of business. Lord, help us to keep our moral compass facing true north. Please fulfill your promise that the government will be on your shoulders. Support and strengthen the foundations of our families, our churches, our government, our beloved city. And finally, I ask that you would send revival across this land. Bring us together in unity and love, no matter our neighborhood, family, economic status, race, color, or background. Bind our hearts together for the only kingdom that cannot be shaken. May our desire be for your kingdom to come and your will to be done in Columbia, Tennessee, as it has already been proclaimed in heaven. And all of this I pray in accordance with the authority that's granted in the matchless and mighty name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen and amen.
Color guard. Oh.
close.
Face. What did you say?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You'll remain standing, and if the council will now please meet me in the well. Thank you for your indulgence on remaining standing. If you can, just for a brief minute longer, many of you may know that this week is National Police Week. It actually began on May 11th, runs through May 16th, and you'll be seeing presentations and memorials and honors all across the country honoring some of our city's finest, and that's certainly the case here in the city of Columbia. We remain proud of the Columbia Police Department and what they do, keeping our community safe. And I know I speak on behalf of all of our city council when I say that and relay our great thanks and debt of gratitude that we have for this department. We will have an event on Monday night, which is an annual event that I know the chief may mention. We would encourage you all to be there. But we're especially proud tonight to have the Honor Guard here that has upped to the game a little bit in their attire, and they look really good. And it's just an indication. We have a very sophisticated police department, I like to say, and you see it here firsthand tonight. So if you allow me to read the proclamation. Whereas there are more than 900,000 law enforcement officers serving the communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Columbia Police Department. Since the first recorded death in 1786, more than 25,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty, including one member of the Columbia Police Department on April 5th, 1981. 170 officers passed away in the line of duty in 2021. It is important that all citizens know and understand the duties and responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency and its officers, and that our Columbia police officers recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting innocent against deception and weak against oppression. Therefore, I, Chaz Mulder, Mayor of the City of Columbia, and on behalf of the Vice Mayor and all of City Council, do hereby proclaim May 15th through 21 as National Police Week in the City of Columbia, and that Sunday, May 15th, be recognized as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of law enforcement officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Everyone is invited for the Columbia Police Department's Police Memorial. It's going to be Monday, May the 16th at 7 p.m. at Highland Baptist Church at 17th and Highland. As far as this Honor Guard goes, it's been more than 20 years since the Honor Guard for the Police Department has been provided upgrades to uniforms and equipment. Over 2 years went into completing this important project, and the Police Department is very proud of the product presented here to you tonight. Our team, supervised by Lieutenant Brian Adams and Sergeant Goetz, consists of 15 officers who train together and answer whenever called upon to represent the City of Columbia and the Columbia Police Department when the situation calls for them. The faceless Honor Guard shows no individualism. All attention and focus is directed toward the individual or circumstance being honored, and no attention to the guard underneath the mask. And we are super proud of this team. Thank you.
Council, if you want to come on up.
Lieutenant Adams, step on back twice.
Go to guard. Thank you.
have everybody. Please smile. 1, 2, 3. One more, please.
All right, so just put your main standing while the clerk guard exits, and then we'll move on.
Lieutenant Adam.
Oh, God. Just missed.
All right, please.
Come on.
All right, everyone, you can be seated now, please. I'll keep council at the well with me for another presentation. I'll take it, Chief. Perfect. Thank you.
Anything for Monday?
Thank you again for CPD and for all the officers and members who are here this evening. That's important, and I appreciate your indulgence in that regard. We do have another proclamation and presentation that I'd like to now present and call Jeff Dwyer with Public Works to the front. Anyone else that may be here, although it looks like maybe, Jeff, you're representing Public Works Department solo this evening, which all good. We're glad you're here. And in any event, this is also an important week for your department and for the men and women that serve in Public Works Department. We say it all the time. We have the best Public Works Department in all the land, and we see that on display on a very regular basis, but it seems like increasingly during times of extreme weather and also well-attended events. It seems like both of those things are happening more and more, and the Public Works Department always stands ready for the occasion. And so it's proper to honor them this evening, and I'm proud to do so, and I'll read this proclamation. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, quality of life, and well-being of Columbia, Tennessee citizens. These infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals at all levels who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation system, public buildings, structures, sanitation, facilities essential for our citizens. It is in the public interest for our citizens, civic leaders, and children in Columbia, Tennessee to gain knowledge of and maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. And the National Public Works Week this year's theme is Ready and Resilient, which showcases the superheroes that lie within each and every public works professional. Always ready to serve and resilient as ever in their abilities to pick themselves off the ground after encountering challenges. All public works personnel are essential first responders and work with local citizens to create a great place to live. The City of Columbia Public Works help maintain our community strength by being ready and resilient while working to provide an infrastructure of services in transportation, stormwater treatment, public buildings, spaces, parks and grounds, emergency management, and first response during storms and pandemics. Now, I therefore, Chaz Mulder, Mayor of the City of Columbia, on behalf of the Vice Mayor and all of the Council, do hereby declare National Public Works Week in Columbia, Tennessee, for the week of May 15th to 2021, May 15th to 21st, 2022, in Columbia, and encourage all citizens and civic organizations to recognize the substantial contribution public works personnel make to protect our health, safety, and quality of life here in Columbia, Tennessee. Come on in, Council. We'll get a picture with Kelly. Jeff, did you want to give a speech or have any remarks?
I'd just like to say thank you to you and then the council, the rest of the council, for recognizing the services that are provided by our department, and everyone will be proud of this, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Council, we have one more presentation. We're going to keep everybody down here. It's the next item on the agenda, but if you're following the agenda, you'll know we're a little bit out of order, but I promise it'll make sense. But for next up, I'd like to call Mac Reagan and also members who are here this evening of the Columbia Breakfast Rotary Club for Mac to give a little bit of overview of why they're here. And anytime we see representation from the Columbia Rotary Club come in City hall, it's generally a good thing because normally they're here to talk about some meaningful contribution that they're making to the city of Columbia, and I know tonight's no different. So, gentlemen, I say thank you for being here. We welcome you here on behalf of all city council. And Mac, tell us a little bit why they're here.
First, I'd like to thank Mary Lee Mashusky, our assistant director. She's been pushing this project for at least 3 years. Been working on it, planning it. We're really pleased. As the mayor said, it seems like a yearly occurrence that the Breakfast Rotary comes in and does a project for us and works with us on something. Last year it was the shelter. This year they're going to redo the basketball court at Riverwalk Park. Going to put on a nice sports tech surfaces. It'll be blue in color, which will hold the heat down, allow people to play longer. The city's going to go in and add some ADA sidewalks that you'll actually install bleachers on, and it'll really make that area accessible to all people of the public, and it'll make it last much longer, and it'll be a much more enjoyable site and physical play activity. Eddie, if you don't mind, if you want.
Well, thank you for this recognition. It's an honor for us to be able to partner with the city and try to do some good things in our community over at Riverwalk Park. And when you say Mary Lee has been pushing this for some time, that's an understatement. We've heard about it several times in our board meetings, and we're glad to finally get to see it come through. So we're happy to be here tonight. I'd like to introduce the members that we've got here: Mr. Randy Notley, Mike Sharpton, Donnie Mara. Everybody knows Jimmy D, Too Much Jelly for One Biscuit Duggar. Our incoming president, Mr. Denny Beaver, and our secretary, Ken McKee. Thank you. And I'm Eddie Allred. I'm a past president and general flunky. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Eddie, you probably know this, but the Breakfast Rotary Club has done so much over the years, contributions to the city and to the county as a whole. Talk about some of those while you have the floor on what that's been.
Well, we've been able to do several projects with the city. We've got a playground equipment out at Ridley Park as well as the shelter. We've built the splash pad. We've got another shelter over at Riverwalk, the Rotary shelter. We've got the exercise equipment.
Yes, sir.
And
Just installed a flagpole.
Flagpole. I forgot about the flagpole. That's a recent addition. So we've done several things for the community in Riverwalk Park. So we're glad to do it.
They certainly have. And, Columbia is is a blessed community because it has very good civic organizations that are continuing to look to ways to contribute to our community. And, not that we're picking favorites here, but it does seem as though the Columbia Breakfast Rotary Club sort of sets the standard when it comes to civic contributions.
Yeah, we do. It not only seems that way, it actually is.
It must be because y'all eat breakfast. That's right. Well, bottom line is we are all grateful for your contributions, and this is going to be a really good addition down there. It's amazing how much activity the Riverwalk Park basketball court gets, and the diverse array of people that it attracts, young, old, and everybody in between. And anytime you drive by Riverwalk Park, cold, sometimes even rainy, there are going to be people down there playing. And I think we're working on some things to also further enhance that area to make it more attractive. But we certainly thank y'all, and it's going to be mighty nice to drive across the bridge and see that nice blue basketball court. So we say thank you, gentlemen. Please take back our gratitude to the entire club as you eat breakfast tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.
Join us.
All right. Well, you heard the invitation, so you never know who might show up. Anybody else on that, Mr. Massey? So I don't know if y'all knew this, but y'all sort of inspired this council to sort of almost match your gift in a way because of the contributions that y'all are making to this court. And because of the amount of LED lights that the city has installed over the last year and a half or so, which is reducing cost, but also providing an overall just better light product, we've decided to also add LED lights to the basketball court at Riverwalk Park, which means your inspiration on improving the park has led to something even bigger and better with the addition of nice new LED lights that'll make the park more accessible and play a longer time. So again, that light is because of y'all's initiative and your vision and taking the lead. So we say thank you for that.
Good.
All right, we'll get a quick picture if it's all right with Kelly, and then we'll get to playing some ball.
Same time next year.
That's right.
didn't need a bit of instruction.
A lot of egos up there, Kelly.
Not at all. All right, big smiles, here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
I appreciate y'all doing that. Pillow Park.
It's cool. And
Yeah, because I see I can really feel
there's Central Play there.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
Good job.
Yeah, you're free to go.
You're welcome.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
All right. Thank you again for everyone who are here this evening, but also who are watching at home, for your indulgence and your patience for those presentations. You know, those presentations are important because without those kind of contributions, without the dedicated employees that we have, everything else that we do would be inconsequential. So thanks for your indulgence on that. I do want to point out one more thing, matter of personal privilege here. Tonight, we're in a sort of a redesigned chamber from a technological perspective, and so I think all of us are very excited about some of the enhancements that have been made to this chamber that'll make it more accessible to the public, which was a primary goal in approving this. And so, Jonathan, I don't mean to call you on the spot, but I'm going to call you up if you don't mind, Jonathan Stotler, our MIS director, to just give a brief little overview of some of the improvements that we now have in this council chamber.
Sure. Members of council, Mr. Mayor, city manager, what we've done is totally revamped the entire system. It's gone from a totally analog system to totally digital. What you see back there in the back, that big black stack of things, replaces everything analog and is digital. So going forward, anything that we decide to add on technology-wise, we already have a good infrastructure for. Currently, we are streaming to YouTube. It does have capabilities to do Facebook and other live stream events. So we do have the 3 new monitors above there. They're all brand new speakers here in the audience area. A new monitor out there with an overflow speaker, so it'll allow people out there to witness everything that goes on here as well as here. And that's pretty much the overview, other than some of the exact technical specs. The cameras have been upgraded to all 1080p. I believe they can do 4K resolution with an upgrade. But those kind of technologies are just ever evolving and always there to be upgraded. And we have a very good set now, so I think going forward we'll have a great experience.
All right. Any member of council have a question on that? Jonathan, thank you for doing that. I didn't even. Councilmember Coleman.
I just want to say thank you for your leadership on this. I believe that the things that we're doing here don't just make things look better, but it actually creates more transparency in government, where people can access. Like you said, you mentioned the other platforms we could be streaming to. Hopefully we can do that in the near future. So I just want to say thank you for your leadership on this.
Thank you very much.
I think you're right, Councilmember Coleman. Really, primary objective here is make sure that we had a product that was in keeping with the times, that could keep more and more people in tune with what we're doing. And so I think that certainly was accomplished for sure. So thank you, Jonathan, for that.
Thank you.
All right. We will now go back to Section 4 just to approve the agenda. So we're on now Section 4, approval of agenda. Entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none. Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman? Aye. Mr. Green? Ms. Hardison?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall? Aye. Mr. Wiles? Aye. Vice Mayor Martin?
Aye.
Mayor Mulder?
Aye. The agenda is approved. We'll move on now to Section 6 since we have now passed through Section 5. 6.1, approve the minutes of the April 14, 2022 City Council meeting. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman? Aye. Mr. Green? Aye. Ms. Hardison?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall? Aye. Mr. Wiles? Aye. Vice Mayor Martin?
Aye.
Mayor Mulder?
Aye. That item is approved. Next item, 6.2, approve the ratification of retirement benefits for Monty Ackley, equipment operator, wastewater department.
Move for approval.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilmember Green. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none. Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman? Aye. Mr. Green? Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Mr. Wiles. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Moulton.
Aye. Item 6.2 is approved. Next section, consent agenda. These items are deemed non-controversial, requiring no individual discussion, so I'll read them collectively, and then we'll vote on them collectively, subject to someone requesting it be removed from the consent agenda. 7.1, approved disbursements for the month of March 2022 in the amount of $5,575,373.10. 7.2, approved payment to Murray County to provide funding for the Murray County City of Columbia Animal Services Facility for the third quarter fiscal year 2022 in the amount of $50,000. 7.3, approve the purchase of a new 2023 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 4x2 crew vehicle in the amount of $29,482 from Wilson County Motors utilizing State of Tennessee contracts, Parks and Rec Department. 7.4, approve and authorize the mayor to sign the non-exclusive use and occupancy permit between the City of Columbia and the Columbia American Little League for the 2022 season, Wards 4 and 5, Parks and Rec. 7.5, approve and authorize the mayor to sign a live, work, and/or service agreement between the City of Columbia and Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Hohenwald, for the construction of a fire mural wall located in Firefighters Park. 7.6, approve the purchase of a 2023 Chevrolet 2500 crew cab truck in the amount of $55,293.50 from Wilson County Motors, utilizing State of Tennessee contract, Public Works Department. 7.7, approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract between the City of Columbia and Morris Media Network in the amount of $6,000 for advertising in the Ware Nashville Guide, the city manager's office. 7.8, approve and authorize the mayor to execute change order number 2 in the amount of $9,199 to the project development agreement with Path Company LLC for addition of LED lighting at Riverwalk Park, basketball court, and Mr. City Manager, do you want to be heard?
Just a brief comment for council. If you recall, last week at the study session, we discussed the possibility of adding the parking lot lights to this contract with Bath. We found out this week that the lights out there are actually owned by CPWS. So Bath, they're not our lights, in other words. So we'll be in contact, Vice Mayor, with CPWS about having them to do that work for us at a future time.
Thank you. Okay.
And this does include the Riverwalk basketball lights, right?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Any questions for him on that item 7.8? Hearing none. 7.9, approve and authorize the mayor to execute the Paylocity Benefits Administration and Technology Fees for Service and Administrative Agreement in the estimated amount of $7,992.60. 7.10, approve amendment to the contract with Landscape Management. And that is your consent agenda.
Move for approval.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilmember Coleman. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman. Aye. Mr. Green. Aye. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Aye. Mr. Wiles.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Moulton.
Aye. Consent agenda is approved. There being no matters under Section 8 Administration, we move on now to Section 9 Resolutions. 9.1, Resolution 2230, a resolution accepting a donation totaling $20,000 from the Columbia Breakfast Rotary Club for improvements to the Riverwalk Park basketball court.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by the Vice Mayor. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, other than to say, again, thanks to the Rotary Club, and Mac, thanks to you for your department facilitating this very good upgrade. Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman. Aye. Mr. Green. Aye. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Aye. Mr. Wiles. Aye. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Moulton.
Aye. Item 9.1 is approved. Next item, 9.2, a resolution establishing a new bank account and designating authorized signers and alternates for all City of Columbia bank accounts. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on item 9.2? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman. Aye. Mr. Green. Aye. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Aye. Mr. Wiles. Aye. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Moulton.
Aye. Item 9.2 is approved. Next item, 9.3, Resolution 2232, a resolution adopting Columbia 2022, 2026, 2036 as the annual strategic plan for the City of Columbia.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on item 9.3? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman. Aye. Mr. Green. Aye. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Aye. Mr. Wiles. Aye. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Moulton.
Aye. Item 9.3 is approved. Next item, 9.4, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a subdivision development agreement for Summerdale Subdivision Phase 7 within the city limits of Columbia, Tennessee, Ward 3. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on 9.4? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Mr. Green. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Mr. Wiles. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye. That item is approved. Next item, 9.5, Resolution 2234, Tax Correction, City Recorder's Office.
Move for approval.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Mr. Green. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Mr. Wiles. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye, that item is approved. Next item, 9.6, Resolution 2235, a resolution accepting a donation from Muletown Disc Golf in the amount of $4,682 for 18 additional disc golf baskets at Woodland Park, Ward 2. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on 9.6? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Mr. Green. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Mr. Wiles. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye, that item is approved. 9.7, Resolution 2236, a resolution accepting a donation of a used bicycle from the Track Bicycle Store valued at $50 for display purposes. Appreciated the explanation on this at last week's study session, Mr. Reagan, and of course Alex for his continued good work on all things bike at Parks and Rec.
Move for approval.
Been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on 9.7? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Mr. Green. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Mr. Wiles. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye. That item is approved. Next item, ordinances. Item 10.1, second consideration of ordinance number 4398, an ordinance to amend ordinance number 3638, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Columbia, Tennessee, to zone property being annexed by resolution number 22-21, located at 626 Baker Road, being tax map 74, parcel 37, to single-family, low-density residential, that's RS10. This is Ward 5. For tonight's sign-up sheet, I did have one individual who signed up to speak this evening on this topic and actually on all topics. So, Mr. David Henson, come on up, sir. If you'll come up and identify yourself with your address, and you'll have the floor for 3 minutes to speak on item 10.1.
Thank you. I'm David Henson, live at 667 Baker Road. It's directly across from that. I want to thank the council and the planning commission for the work they've done on this. I don't agree with it, but I know there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I know there's a lot of decisions that go on that I don't have to agree with. I do think that the density is still too high, and I ask that you vote it down to that if you will, but I ask you anyway. So thank you.
Mr. Henson, I want to say thank you for being here. And I don't think you were here last month, but I said it last month and I'll say it again. This development is a better overall product because of the input that you and others had on the development. If you recall, this originally came in an RS6, a much higher density development, and I think you and others brought to the attention some concerns. And although it's not necessarily one that you're in approval of, I can promise you it's a lot better product tonight than it was when it first came. And I say thank you to you and for others in the community that contributed to that conversation. All right, we're back on 10.1. Entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on item 10.1? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Mr. Green. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Mr. Wiles. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye, that item is approved. Next item, 10.2, second consideration of ordinance number 4399, an ordinance to amend ordinance 3638, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Columbia, Tennessee, by rezoning tax map 99J, Group C, Parcel 2, located at 913 Riverside Drive, from low-density residential to single-family medium-density residential. This is Ward 5.
Move for approval.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Mr. Green. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Mr. Wiles. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye, that item is approved. Next item, 10.3, second consideration of ordinance number 4401, an ordinance to change the address known as 705 Tom Sharp Road to 705 Firefighters Drive, Ward 5.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on item 10.3? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Mr. Green. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Mr. Wiles. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye. 10.3 is approved. Next item, 10.4, second consideration of ordinance 4402, an ordinance abandoning and declaring a surplus real estate located at 706 and 708 Woodland Street, Columbia, and authorizing the conveyance of such property to the Industrial Development Board of the City of Columbia. It's been moved and properly seconded, and I just want to say thank you to the city manager for once again proving your value on thinking of creative ways to find solutions and to also potentially enhancements of various things in the downtown district. And so I say it should be said thank you to you for your leadership on this one.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other item or any other discussion on this item? All right, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman. Aye. Mr. Green. Aye. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Aye. Mr. Wiles. Aye. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye, that item is approved. Next item, 10.5. First consideration on ordinance number 4400, an ordinance to repeal ordinance 3638 and 3639, replacing with a new development ordinance for the city of Columbia, Tennessee, and established June 9, 2022 as the date of public hearing. It's been moved and properly seconded. I'll just repeat what I said last week once again to Paul Keltner and his entire team. This has been a labor of love. And again, like with many things that we deal with that are as consequential as this zoning ordinance is, not everybody is always going to agree with 100% of what's in it, but I think we can all agree that the product that we have tonight is certainly putting the city in a better position than the current product, but more importantly, it positions Columbia for continued progress in the right kind of ways. And so Paul, again, I say thank you on behalf of all of us to you and your team for that. Any other discussion on item 10.5? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman. Aye. Mr. Green. Aye. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Aye. Mr. Wiles. Aye. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye, that item is approved. Next item, 10.6. First consideration of ordinance number 4403, an ordinance fixing the tax rate for the city of Columbia for the year 2022 on all taxable property at the rate of 1.1597 per 100 and establish the date of June 9, 2022 as the date of public hearing.
Move for approval. And if I get a second, Mayor, I'd like you to have some comments about that.
Perfect. Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. And I'm glad the Vice Mayor mentioned this is something I think is important that we point out this evening. And Mr. Jablonski, who is our resident financial expert, I think is going to be able to articulate it far better than me. But I know that our residents over the last several days have been receiving in the mail their updated property tax assessments showing what the new tax assessed value is of their property. And unfortunately, I think a lot of folks operate on the assumption that that must mean that their taxes are going to therefore increase as a result of the increased assessed value. And actually, the opposite is true. Instead, not only are their property values going to have increased as a result of what we will ultimately do as a city, which is essentially lower the effective tax rate, there will be a neutral tax bill in terms of what they paid last year versus what they'll be paying under the new assessed value. So, Mr. Jablonski, I'm sure I probably did not state that very well, so could you please provide an explanation on what we're doing this evening, but also on what it is likely we'll be doing to correct?
Very good. Thank you, Mayor, members of council, and you did very well, sir. State law, as we've discussed last week at the study session, state law prohibits cities from raising and increased property tax revenues from reappraisals due to increased property values. So, as following from state law, the budget is proposed tonight refers to a certified tax rate, and that certified rate has been lowered. In theory, a certified rate is lowered so that it increases. That increase in value generates the same amount of tax revenue. So what we'll do, the state will calculate that certified tax rate, send it to us the first week of June, and at next month's meeting, at the June meeting for second consideration, the city will propose that certified tax rate, which will be at a lower rate, so that when that lower rate times the new reappraised values, that will generate the same amount of taxes. In other words, nobody's taxes will go up. We'll generate the same amount of revenue.
So isn't it true then, Mr. Jablonski, that most folks, when they receive their notices, will show an increased assessed value, correct?
That's correct.
Based upon the increased values as a whole for our market, but then it's also true that even though their value will be increasing, that by the time their tax bill is sent to them in the mail in or about September, that they will not be paying any additional property taxes from what they paid the year prior,
That is correct, sir.
based upon the certified tax rate being
When a
lowered.
certified rate is adopted, it is a win-win for the property owner. Increased value on their asset, that is their home, but then no effective tax increase on their property.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And I just think it's important because I know a lot of people I've heard from this week that have received that, and they automatically assume that their taxes are going to be increased. And so I just wanted to make sure the record was set, and Mr. Jablonski did a very fine job in doing that. So thank you. All right. So we're on 10. Any other questions of Mr. Jablonski, by the way, from any member of council? We're back on 10.6. It has been moved and properly seconded. No other discussion. We'll entertain a motion, or we'll ask Mr. Jablonski to call the vote.
Mr. Coleman? Aye. Mr. Green? Aye. Ms. Hardison?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall? Aye. Mr. Wiles?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Martin?
Aye.
Mayor Muller?
Aye, that item is approved. Next item, 10.7, first consideration of ordinance number 4404, appropriation ordinance for fiscal year July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023, and establish June 9, 2022 as the date of public hearing. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on this item? All right, Mr. Jablonski, call the vote, please.
Mr. Coleman? Aye. Mr. Green? Aye. Ms. Hardison?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall? Aye. Mr. Wiles? Aye. Vice Mayor Martin?
Aye.
Mayor Muller?
Aye. 10.7 is approved. Next item, 10.8, first consideration of ordinance 4405, an ordinance to approve the classification and compensation plan for the employees of the City of Columbia for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Move for approval. Second.
Everybody wants to join the fun on that one. It's been moved and properly seconded. I know that there may be some other members that want to speak on this item, but again, I think that it is important that as this council moves forward and as it sees the growth and as it is presiding over this current moment in time, that we recognize that the only way we can continue to do those things is if we take care of the people who are waking up each and every day to serve this community. And as I said last week, I'll say it again, I'll say it every time I can, we should never be content with what we're able to do with regards to our city employee. However, I do think on an occasion such as this, we can at least be satisfied in knowing that we're doing everything we can within reason for this budget year to make sure we're taking care of our most important, which that being our city employee with this 5% increase in salary across the board. So, Mr. City Manager, thank you for doing that. Like I said last week, generally speaking, when I have the budget presentation, the first thing I do is flip to page 2, maybe page 3 to see what that number is going to be, and I was pleased to see that number this year, for sure. Any other member of council? Madam Vice Mayor.
Yes, Mayor, members of council. I want to first ask Mr. City Manager to make a couple of comments about this 5% and where in our history we've done this or not.
Well, Vice Mayor, we first of all leaned on our senior elected official up here to find out. In your 30 years on city council, you've never voted on a raise this high for city employees at one time. So that's our point of reference there. As we discussed last week during the study session, we felt as a staff that based on where we are and the revenue streams being where they are, that we felt comfortable in making this recommendation to you. Also trying to be sensitive to the current economic climate and what's going on here locally and also nationwide. So this 5% represents $1,243,000 in cost to the city. So it's not cheap. But as I said last week, we feel comfortable in recommending it to you that we can do this for our employees. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. It's important for me to say to the people who are here tonight and the people who are viewing this council meeting that our employees have had a tough year. A tough 2 years, really. And we've experienced things as employees and as council that we had no envision that would ever happen in the life of a municipality. So with the mayor's leadership, the city manager's leadership, and all of our department heads, we have been able to be progressively successful in floods, in tornadoes, in high winds, in COVID and everything else, we're still marching forward. And I just hope that our employees know how much we appreciate them as our premier resource for the city of Columbia. We're spending lots of money on our equipment, on cars, and on concrete and all this other stuff, but we certainly wanted to match that with what we did for our raises. And I'm just excited to be a part of this point in the history of the city of Columbia. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to say that.
All right. Any other member of council wish to be heard on this item? 10.8. Hearing none, I should have mentioned it at the time, but since I didn't, I'm going to go back and also say 10.7. And I know the Vice Mayor and I talked about this as well. But it should be said to Thad and Tony and everyone else, department head, everyone that helped put together the budget for this year. I know it's just first consideration. We have one more to go, as we do on 10.8. But there's a lot of good things in there, and really excited about what will come from what that budget represents. So anyway, kudos to the financial folks on that as well. All right, we're ready to vote on item 10.8. Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman. Aye. Mr. Green. Aye. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Aye. Mr. Wiles.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Moulton.
Aye. Item 10.8 is approved. Next item, 10.9. First consideration, ordinance 4406, an ordinance to amend Columbia Municipal Code by deleting Title 14, Chapter 5, pertaining to aquatic buffers in its entirety and replacing such section with a new Title 14, Chapter 5, pertaining to engineering standards and specifications, and established June 9, 2022 as the date of public hearing. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman. Aye. Mr. Green. Aye. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Aye. Mr. Wiles. Aye. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Moulton.
Aye. That item is approved. Next item, 10.10. First consideration of ordinance 4407, an ordinance to amend fiscal year 21-22 budget. Ordinance number 4345 as amended, providing for revisions to the general fund and established June 9, 2022 as the date of public hearing. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on item 10.10? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman. Aye. Mr. Green. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Aye. Mr. Wiles. Aye. Vice Mayor Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Moulton.
Aye. 10.10 is approved. Next, section 11, other business, we have 11.1, resolution 2221, a resolution to annex and approve a plan of services for tax map 74, parcel 37, located at 626 Baker Road, into the city of Columbia, Tennessee, Ward 5. And of course, this follows the previous approval relative to the rezone. Been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on item 11.1? Hearing none, Mr. Jablonski.
Coleman. Aye. Mr. Green. Ms. Hardison.
Aye.
Mr. Marshall. Aye. Mr. Wiles. Aye. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Moulton.
Aye. Item 11.1 is approved. All right. Our city attorney this evening, I don't think we have a reason to go into executive session, but we do say thank you for being here and welcome to council tonight. Any member of council wish to be heard before we adjourn? Madam Vice Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, you did mention during the progress of the meeting that we wanted to contact Columbia Power and Water Systems, our utility, regarding LED lights at Riverwalk. We have made a quick text to our CEO, Scott Dahlstrom, and he has responded in the affirmative. That will be taken under consideration. So thank you, council. We will be working on that immediately.
Anyone else wish to be heard this evening? Just a couple things that I wanted to point out. First of all, again, Monday, May 16th, this coming Monday at Highland Park Baptist Church, the memorial service. If you've never been before, I promise you'll leave it. It'll be a moving event for you. I'll put it that way. If you've never been, and if you have been, you know that already. And I hope to see everyone there next week. This past week, I've had the opportunity to speak to a group of 4-year-olds 2 days ago, and then today to the senior citizens. And, both of those opportunities, I walk away with a smile on my face and with just some optimism about this community and where we're headed. And, I think it's important that we realize that we don't always agree on everything. There was a very good discussion yesterday at our Planning Commission meeting, for example, where there's disagreement and people can agree and disagree and have different opinions. But at the end of the day, We're all in it for the right reasons, and that is for moving Columbia forward. And I think we can all agree that Columbia is doing that. And if you ever doubt that, you can go spend some time with some 4-year-olds or spend some time with some senior, older adults, and you can have that confirmed. So that, I guess, will be the last word for tonight, unless anyone else wishes to be heard. And it doesn't appear that they do. I do want to say also one final thing. We make good, quick work in these council meetings because of the good work that's done that leads up to this formal council meeting. So if you're watching at home or you're here tonight for the first time and you think, man, that's a very efficient meeting, first of all, I say thank you. We'll take that as a compliment. But actually, I say really the hard work happens at study sessions, the work session, which is the week prior to the formal meeting where we get to have conversation and discussion and even debate. But really the important heavy lifting happens before it ever gets to our point as a council, and that's with the department heads, the city manager, et cetera. So I say that to say that for a good, efficient meeting, we don't get to take credit for that. It should be the city manager and department heads for helping us have such an efficient operation here at the City of Columbia. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. It's been moved and properly seconded. There'll be no discussion on that. Mr. Jablonski.
Mr. Coleman. Aye. Mr. Green. Ms. Hardison. Aye. Mr. Marshall. Aye. Mr. Wiles. Aye. Vice Mayor Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Mulder.
Aye. We are adjourned.